Hey, it's Mazza here. I'm with John in the UK, a 6-inch pianist who I
That's
find
right.
is the my favorite soul vinyl community member and contributor. And he shows the best. I mean, a lot of American, obviously R&B, blues related things, and amongst other things that, Northern England, whatever, which I'm not as aware of. But we're doing a video here on Prince, and I've been toying with the idea since I've been doing a lot of ranking videos lately, doing a Prince thing. And I realized for me, it's impossible because the first, I don't know, 10 years, 12 years, I know those albums pretty much really, really well. But I realized I don't have his first album. Oh my God. I just realized it for some reason. I thought another one was the first album. Anyway, but as we get into this, and I'm not going to show all these, after that, I continued to buy everything on compact disc for the most part. And as much as I used to play those records a lot, I don't know them well in terms of titles. And I didn't remember not even getting into reading liner notes, but I would put them on and just for the mood. And I still loved them, during his, this period.
Yeah. Okay.
A little
Yeah.
bit. And so we'll take it from there. I think I want John to start and getting a little intro how he got into Prince.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
we'll go back and forth showing records, not necessarily our favorites, but just talk about them.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. So I originally got into Prince in 1988, and it was this record. If I just stick it out, it was "LoveSexy." That was the first album that I bought of Prince, and I bought it because of the third single that was released from the album, which was "I Wish You Heaven."
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's still one of my favorite Prince songs to this day. It had a great video. And I remember buying it on CD. And I don't know whether it's the same as your copy, but the initial copies of this album on CD, the whole album was classed as one track.
Yes.
So you couldn't skip from track to track. You had to listen to the thing in its entirety. And I actually think that's what got me into Prince, because the track that I bought it for, "I Wish You Heaven," was the penultimate track on the album. It's track 8. So every time I went to play it, I was having to listen to the whole thing, which obviously included Alphabet Street and Glam Slam and I Know. And it's just a brilliant record. It's probably the last of that sort of perfect run of albums that he had. But yeah, I love the cover as well, the artwork. It's just a brilliant record.
It's this album. I remember a lot of people I know who got it. It pissed them off that you couldn't do the track by track by track thing.
Yeah.
I don't remember what year this was. What year was this?
88.
Oh, it was 88. So you got it right away. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Fantastic. So what about you?
I got into Prince on this album. So in 1980, I didn't have the first 2 albums, and I had a friend. It was my last year or 2 in the record business. And I had a friend who worked for Warner Brothers, and he gave me this promo copy of this record. And of course, is this around the time what was the first Madonna record came out? There was was that a little later? Is that 82?
Yeah, I think that was a bit later than this.
Yeah. But I remember there was this, in my mind, those first few years, I got this record, I listened to it, and I didn't immediately sort of jump into it. But when I started listening to it, probably not for a year after it came out, I started realizing sort of these minimal punk sensibilities as well as the soul stuff. And I just had no clue. By looking at that, I wouldn't think of this as I'm not saying it's post-punk, but it's that minimal production value. It's funky, it's gritty, and I fell in love with it at that. But it took me literally a year before. I think that was the time where I was getting a lot of promos when you're in the business, and they stack up. You get so many records, you hardly have time to play them. And this was one of those records. But once it hit, I just fell in love with this record. So that was my first.
It's a strange record as well, because it's basically an album of demos. So as you say, it's a very minimal sound, and as you say, it's quite gritty, and the subject matter of some of those songs as well are really close to the bone. Obviously, yeah. So stuff like Head and Sister. So great record.
And that year, one of my favorite albums. 1980. I've done videos on 1980 and my personal things, but one of my favorite records of that year is an album called Young Marble Giants that came out.
Yeah.
And now that I think about it, it's not like this, but it's not unlike this. It's obviously like Searching for Mr. Right, the minimalist side of it, without the funky, outrageous lyrical side of it. It has I don't know, maybe because it's black and white cover and the same year. I think it just reminds me of that. So
but a great record. And anybody that doesn't have that album, that is certainly one of the places to start. It's because the songs are strong and it's something different. If you don't know all of his records, that's an album that stands out on its own. It's a very different sound to his other records.
Right. It's not a lot of production value.
Yeah. Cool. Right. Okay. Well, I just want to, same sort of time, 1981, 82, that sort of period where it became clear that Prince was, writing so much material that he couldn't put it all out himself. So he then starts setting up other bands. So he puts together The Time, and he puts together the Vanity Six, and he goes out on the road 1981, 82 on the 1999 tour. And it's like a review show. So the Vanity Six opened the show with The Time providing the musical backing. Then The Time played, and then Prince did his 1999 show. So it's all Prince the whole evening, And that first, the only Vanity Six album, I think is a great sort of early 80s funk record. The track that everybody should know on this is Nasty Girl, a brilliant sort of funk pop tune. But that song has actually been covered since, and it's been a big hit in the UK for another artist, Inaya Day, in the early 2000s. But and obviously you can tell just from the cover. Basically, he's put together a girl group. They're all obviously scantily clad, and that was the whole premise of the album. But there's a great Rolling Stone magazine from that period with Prince and Vanity. Quite a famous Richard Avedon photograph there. But a great.
That was from the purple. That was from the Purple Rain period, right? Definitely.
So that's just before. So so that's okay. So just after 1999. But wonderful stuff. And I love that period. As I say, we all associate Prince with just having this work ethic, and just being so prolific. And it was really around that sort of time that became clear. He's just writing so much stuff and so much good music as well, that he had to put together two more bands to be able to get that music out to the world. Fantastic.
About a month ago, I was following your Instagram, and I know you've done some videos on a lot of this, and you were showing almost like every day Prince, and the related Prince. And I didn't keep up with a lot of those records at the time. I used to get some of them again through Warner Brothers. And then during my 95 purge, all the 12-inch singles and the Vanity singles and the Time records I got rid of, unfortunately, during my period like that. But I just remember all those coming through, and it was like a little like machine he was creating. In Minneapolis.
And he always had that as well. Throughout his career, he was always providing material to other artists, and he was sort of manufacturing. I say there were manufactured bands which he put together, and he pretty much played all the music on them. He wrote the music. You can hear his vocals on some of those albums as well. So it's they're basically Prince albums often just with a different singer.
Well, that would bring me. I'm not going in any kind of order, and these aren't necessarily my favorite albums, but you just reminded me of this record, and I'm pretty happy with when he switched. Well, this actually was Warner Brothers, but I liked the last couple of things he's done. I think it was through Columbia, Sony putting this stuff out now. I'm not even sure. Because when they put the reissue of Purple Rain, and I got the remaster, and I just didn't like the sound of it. And I'm not gonna. I know this isn't really about the sound and compression. We're not talking about remasters or remixes or anything. I just did not like that. But the last few records I really like. And what this is, for those of you who don't know, it's called Prince Originals, and it's his versions. And you could probably talk more about it, how much are finished project or demos, everything from Manic Monday, which we know the Bangles did, to Jungle Love, 100 Miles Per Hour, Holly Rock, Baby You're a Trip, The Glamorous Life, Dear Michelangelo, Nothing Compares to You, Sinead O'Connor, hit single. Talk about this one a little bit.
Yeah, so the way that Prince worked, and this is, I suppose, what we're benefiting from now with regards to the vault and the music that's been put out by his estate at the moment, is that he didn't just, when he came up with the song idea, he fully recorded it. So, basically anything that he came up with, every song was fully finished. It was fully recorded, fully produced, arranged. What might not have happened is it might not necessarily be mixed, but everything we're hearing now is basically what Prince produced himself prior to his death. And those examples there, they're all songs that were written for other artists. Now, Manic Monday was actually written for Vanity Six. So that was meant to be on their follow-up album to that first Vanity Six album. Vanity fell out with him and she left the group, and therefore he gave some of the songs to other artists. She should have been in the Purple Rain film, incidentally. She should have been playing the Apollonia part, but obviously when she walked out, she gave up a role in the film. She basically signed to Motown Records. She got a big deal with Motown. Thought she'd be better off going out on her own. And those albums that she made with Motown are horrible. But it's interesting that he wrote all this music and he basically gave it away to other artists, so that the Bangles benefited from that with Manic Monday. But that album in particular is just basically demos of songs which he wrote for other artists and he gave away. And you just can't believe, the standardist stuff that he gave it away. So Nothing Compares to You was, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, no, they're great songs. And I was familiar with a lot of songs. I don't know all the original versions like you would, but I remember we talked about this little chat we had last time, just off the record, was exactly a year after Prince passed. I was doing work in Minneapolis. So I went, I took a car ride, like about a 30-40 minute car ride outside of downtown Minneapolis, went to Paisley Park, which is, when you look at it from a distance, it looks like one of those sort of biochemical medical laboratories, like an office park. It's a freestanding white building, and inside of it, it's the interior, the paint job and everything is so 80s dated, late 80s, early 90s, dated with the pinks and purples of that sense. So, and he didn't update those. Unfortunately, that's where he passed, in the elevator there. But going through that tour, you can't take pictures inside because they have you locked, that your camera's in a locked bag, right? But you see the several studios. They play some music for you. You see, you realize, even though I've seen Prince 4 or 5 times live, when you see him on stage, it's a different thing. You realize how tiny he was physically, because they have some of his costumes on these mannequin builds in some of the office rooms and studio rooms. But this great performance space where he would have these parties like at midnight, and sometimes he would show up and play and sometimes not. He would invite, like semi-private, but if you're in the know, you might be invited to one of these venues. But it was great to see, where the vault is and all, and that's when they were just starting to do an archival overview of it, and things, as organized as he was in a way, some of the stuff was a mess. There was some leaks in the building, and my friend, who's an archivist, had spoken to some people about that because they're looking to organize it all. So it's an amazing that finally it seems like the archive and the archivist, whoever is, these guys that are working on this, are really finally narrowing it down.
And they're doing a really good job with it as well. They haven't flooded the market with his stuff. Everything, there's been real care gone into every release that we've seen so far. I mean, I know that you picked up the Sign of the Times box set that came out last year, a 13 LP set. And I don't think, I can't think of a better archival release. There it is.
It is
so
open.
Well done.
I haven't slipped. I mean, there's very few albums, and I almost didn't buy this. And I don't know if your videos finally sold me or someone else's, because this might be my favorite Prince album, Signs of the Time. There's something about it that it's a little more psychedelic. It's a little more dirgy. Like, one of my all-time favorite songs, since we're on this, is The Cross. And something about that song is, it's got Eastern sounds, almost, dare I say, George Harrison-like. That.
I was wondering how long it was going to take you to mention the Beatles.
Say a Beatle connection. Oh, it's always a Beatle connection. Hey, While My Guitar Gently Weeps, that version he does the guitar bit on. But it's amazing they're doing that. But the one you should continue now with something. But I'm very pleased with the archive series that are coming out.
Yeah, definitely. They're doing such a good job with it. And of course, we've got these special releases coming out, such as, well, we've just had Welcome to America, but then the box sets of Sign of the Times. We had a 10 LP set of 1999, which is equally as good. But they're also still putting out some of the albums, repressing them on vinyl. Well, some of them have never been out on vinyl before. And the one that I want to just quickly talk about is this. Now, this is Emancipation. So this was, yeah, there you go. This is the first album that he put out on his own label, following that sort of disagreement that he had with Warner Brothers. Now the whole mid-90s period for me with Prince is absolutely fascinating, because you've basically got one of music's biggest stars in Prince turning his back on a major label to set up on his own. And this is at a time, now it would be a lot easier with the internet and such like, but we basically had this strange period where he split from a major label. And for the next sort of 5 or 6 years, well, even longer than that, he was permanently trying to come up with new ways to release his music. Now, personally, I think, both Prince and Warner's lost out when they split. Warner's obviously lost one of their biggest stars. The whole disagreement was around ownership of his music. He didn't like the fact that Warner's owned his masters, but also the fact they were dictating when and how often he could release music, how much music he could release. And he was creating all this stuff. He just wanted to get it out there. And this is an example of that. It's 36 songs. It's 3 hours long. Obviously, it's a triple album. And I must admit, 25 years later, I think I'm pretty much only just getting to grips with it now. It's that meaty. But the song that I want to mention on this is a song that he does with Kate Bush called My Computer. I think it's in like track 8 or track 9 on the third disc. And what I sort of hoped would happen when Prince passed away, I was hoping that that sort of late 90s, early 2000s music that he made would get a bit more attention. And that hasn't really happened. It's still the Prince fans who are buying these reissues. But if anybody doesn't know this record, I mean, it is hit and miss. The production isn't great. But if you don't know that song, My Computer, you can really hear Kate Bush on it. I'd strongly recommend it. But yeah, again, the vinyl reissue of this, it's a 6 LP set. Really well done. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's one, I only have the compact disc. As I said, I kept playing it. And like you said, I've never got fully immersed in this. This is one of those records I would put on, I would do stuff around the house, I would enjoy. And by the time I would all of a sudden look and realize what I was playing, it was over. And so I didn't really sit down, and whether it's my sweet spot or otherwise, and pay attention to it and look at the track list and understand what's here. It is overwhelming. He was putting so much stuff out. And I mean, I absolutely agree with you, because to me, just talk about the record business a little bit. Out of all the labels for a long time, to me, Warner Brothers used to be one of the most artist-friendly labels. Yeah. And having signed your masters away, I mean, that's a legal issue that to me should have been negotiated, renegotiated, which is common. A lot of artists got screwed, but a lot of artists are able to get their things back. And to the end, as we know, before he died, they sort of patched things up, and he went back with Warner Brothers. I
mean, what you've got to remember here, though, is that obviously the deal that he signed when he was 17 or 18, it was a pretty shitty deal from a monetary point of view. But Purple Rain was Prince's 6th record. So from day one, Warner's allowed him to write, produce, arrange himself. And he was a teenager. He played everything on those records. And, we just mentioned Dirty Mind. So, the debut wasn't a great success for you. And then the self-titled second album did pretty well. Songs, there you go, stuff like I Feel For You and I Want to Be Your Lover.
There's some great stuff on this album.
Great stuff on it. It's a great record. And then he takes a real left turn with Dirty Mind. So Warners were letting him do what he wanted to do creatively, and they were supporting him. And obviously that mid-90s period where he fell out with Warners, what you got to remember is that he re-signed with them in 1992 for one of the biggest deals in music history at that point. It was for several tens of $1 million, and it was a couple of years after that he changed his mind, and he thought, I don't want to go ahead with this. So he did have the chance to get out of it sooner than he did, but he chose to re-sign for the cash. So, I do think that Warners get a bit of a hard time in this story, yeah. But I mean, you know, obviously the whole ownership thing is another conversation itself, isn't it? But yeah, I find this whole situation with Prince in the mid-90s, because he very quickly lost a great deal of his fan base. The music press turned on him. I mean, I've got dozens of magazines from that period where journalists were just basically mocking him for he changed his name to an unpronounceable symbol. He was carrying out interviews where he wouldn't answer with words. He'd only answer with, facial gestures and hand movements. So everybody just took the piss out of him. He became a bit of a laughing stock for a period of time.
Yeah, the early 90s was an interesting time in the record business, because they were, labels were like just signing these huge deals, which didn't always pay off. They signed around that time with Prince. Warner Brothers also did that huge deal with REM, like $8 million or $80 million or something.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And REM, except for maybe one or two things, really didn't fulfill creatively and sales wise after that. And I love that band, but it's they were investing. People realized content was king, and they were investing in that content, or so they thought.
It's interesting how different labels dealt with it. I know that EMI, so for example, with Queen, they were signed to EMI for a while. And when EMI wanted them to re-sign, they struck a deal that every time they re-signed their contract, they would give them one of their masters back. So, okay, the label is giving something away, but the artist felt they were getting something back, so they were benefiting from that deal. And that worked for a period of time. It was only when, obviously, there's a label buyout with Terra Firma coming in for EMI that it all fell apart. But, that is perhaps something that Warner's could have done. But
it almost seems like the representation was not quite right, or whoever, and I don't know the whole history, but whoever was working with him legally, management in terms of copyright and legal musical lawyer, wasn't either communicating with him, or he wasn't communicating with his people to come up with something. Because again, Warner Brothers is one of the better labels to work out something. It seems to me, but that's after the fact. I'm going to go. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to say it's interesting because the one thing that the breakdown of the relationship did do, it forced Prince to look at other ways of selling his music. So now we take it for granted, buying music online. So in the late 90s, early 2000s, Prince was way ahead of everybody, selling his music, either music to download or CDs being sold via the internet. He was way ahead of most of the big acts, purely because he had to think of something different. The other thing that he did, certainly in this country, was that he sold, so you showed this album, Planet Earth, before. This is how we got it in the UK. You couldn't buy it in the shops. It was given away through with a national newspaper. So, for one day...
Is it lenticular like this one?
No, it's just a crappy cardboard sleeve. And this is the thing, is if anybody says that giving music away for free doesn't devalue it, they are wrong, because, straight away, if you receive the new Prince album, it's like that. It's just, there's no care gone into it at all. Straight away, that's the impression you get of the music. Now, this is a much better album than how I first heard it, I must admit. I mean, I wasn't overly impressed with it at all. But I've since bought it on vinyl, and I do play it quite a lot now. But, certainly the first impression is just some, shitty cardboard sleeve. And it was the same as well. For 2010, this is the album that came out the year that Welcome to America was recorded. He chose to put this out. I think this was actually released prior to Welcome to America being recorded, but it was put out in 2010, which is when the album was made.
Yeah, we should get into that in a little while.
In a minute.
Talk about that. Yeah. That's interesting, because you talk about giving them away around that period, or actually before that. It's when the market was flooded, at least in the States here, with those America Online AOL CDs everywhere, and obviously covers of Q and Mojo every month. You get a free CD like that.
That's it. Yeah.
Here we got this. I mean, it wasn't a freebie, but we had this lenticular cover, which is I still love this kind of stuff. It's fun.
Well, the vinyl reissue has the same cover. The vinyl reissue,
I haven't
done a good job
with the vinyl, any of the vinyl issues, reissues at all, and I didn't get the 1999 box, and well, for whatever reason, and I'm immersed in other things, as you know, right now. One of which I'm actually sitting on as we speak. I'm going to go with my favorite psychedelic pop album of Prince's, and I love this record. And I remember this was around, was it 80?
85.
I was going to say that, but I knew it because I associate with where I was working, what I was doing. And I remember I was working on this project at Moscone Center, which is a big convention center in San Francisco, for this event. And on my lunch hour, I went away to the record store and bought the CD of this. And I had my Walkman or whatever it was at the time, Discman. And I just loved how poppy was. Obviously, Raspberry Beret. And there's a kind of a funky, fun, bizarre cover of that. I don't know if you ever heard of the album, The Hindu Love Gods.
Yeah, the Peter Buck thing. Yeah.
And with Warren Zevon singing a cover of this song.
Yeah.
And it's a novelty. It's fun. It's not a great version or anything, but it's just fun because it's a great melody. And I remember the video too. Just was really just a fun video all over MTV. Love the cover. Love the Tambourine is one of my favorite songs on here. America, obviously, and I have. Just since we're at the time, I was buying some singles. Just quickly, I'm going to go through. I don't have a lot of singles of Prince, but I would get, pick up these. Here we go.
Yeah,
I love that picture sleeve. Pop Life. You probably have all these.
Yeah, with this album, what you got to remember, the B-sides were so good as well. I mean, some of his best tunes are on the B-sides to the singles from this album. So She's Always in My Hair. That's I think in America that's the B-side to Raspberry Beret. Is just one of his greatest songs. It's an absolutely genius pop song. I can't think of any other artist that would leave off a song as good as that off their album. It's so good.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I was buying at the time too, and I got rid of some of them, like almost all the 12-inch singles, I mean, obviously I kept my 45 because I never bothered purging, there she is. Lisa, right? Or Wendy? Lisa. Wendy Colbert. Wendy. But
yeah, that's Wendy Melvin.
She's the Jewish one. Anyway, her father's the Grammy guy who runs the Grammys in America. Right? Yeah. Anyway, and of course, kind of a strange thing, a little sidekick. But anyway, this is amongst my favorite, and it's very for people who aren't into the funky side, even though it's very funky. It's a very like pop psychedelic. I think it's a masterpiece, at least for my taste.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't disagree with you there. Right, so same sort of time, 1985. I want to show this record. So this is The Family. So you just showed a picture there of Wendy. This is Wendy's twin sister, Susanna Melvoin. So she was Prince's girlfriend at the time, and vocalist in The Family. So this album, it's basically the time had split up. It's basically the few remaining members of the time, plus I say Susanna and Eric Leeds, who became Prince's sax player, flute player. But what I love about this album, this is a great companion piece to Parade, the album that Prince put out in '86. It has the funky side of things, but you can see him throwing jazz into the mix, with those sort of jazzy horns that he added on the Parade album. This is the album that has the original version of Nothing Compares to You. So the first version was by The Family. Prince gave it to The Family, and it didn't really get much attention at the time until Sinead O'Connor obviously recorded that absolutely wonderful version in 1990.
And of course, that video, this close up of her face made it. I mean, right?
There's a great performance by Sinead O'Connor doing that from about 2 years ago now for RTI. The RTI TV station in Ireland. Mm-hmm. She's doing it with an orchestra. If you haven't seen it, get on YouTube and check it out. But her vocal on that song, I mean, I know a lot of Prince fans, because of some of the things that she said about Prince over the years, don't necessarily like her. But personally, I think that is the one version of a Prince song that is better than Prince's version. I think, Nothing Compares to You for me is now Sinead O'Connor's song. But I upset Prince. Well,
it doesn't fit with what she was doing. I mean, to me, her debut album is a brilliant album. I love Mantica. It's a whole different thing. But yeah, I'm sticking around that same period because I was so entrenched with. I love the idea of psychedelic soul and pop. I mean, that's why one thing I wish there was that comp, that Temptations psychedelic soul CD comp, that double album.
Yeah.
I know those songs are on different albums of the period, but I'd love to see a vinyl issue of that psychedelic soul comp, or you know the one I'm talking about on
I know
CD.
you mean, yeah.
I just love that stuff. But I still love this, and I remember when the movie Under the Cherry Moon, is that I saw it in the theater when it came out. We got some, I guess I saw a screening of it from a label screening, and it was awful. It's so self-indulgent and trying to be artsy, black and and his acting is terrible in it, and that's just my opinion. You stop me anytime.
No, I can't disagree with you. It's not good.
But it's kind of like Magical Mystery Tour. It's terrible. Beatles again. There you go. It's terrible that it is. The music is wonderful. But I love. I mean, to me, one of the most beautiful songs he is ever written is on here. Well, Under the Cherry Moon is nice, but what's the winter one? Snow. Sometimes it snows in April. I think that is one of his most beautiful melodies, ballad type melodies, and it goes on for almost 7 minutes. I just love that, So
when Prince passed away in 2012, obviously in the days afterwards, so many artists at their gigs were performing Prince songs, and there's a great version of Sometimes It Snows in April, which was performed by D'Angelo, which I think was recorded. It might have been for Saturday Night Live. Actually, did it. But it's a gorgeous version. So again, something else to check out on YouTube if you get 5 minutes. But I mean, D'Angelo's clearly a massive Prince fan, and you can hear the influence in his music. But I mentioned She's Always in My Hair before, the B-side to Raspberry Beret. Check out his version of that song as well, because again, it's a brilliant version, a brilliant cover version.
Yeah, I mean, and I love that. That's again when I was buying, this 12-inch, Mountains. I just love that song. You probably have that, right?
I've got it. I've pulled out a couple of 12 inches, but
so do you have the complete Prince collection? Do you have everything?
No, I don't know. Certainly not. Well, I probably have most of the singles. I've certainly got all the albums. I probably have most of the singles on either 7-inch or 12-inch, but I'm not a completist, So I'm not totally obsessive. But I do agree. I actually think this is his best 12. And if I throw in a Beatles reference, at the end of Got to Get You Into My Life, I love the tune, but at the end of the song where McCartney really starts going for it with a vocal and it fades out. Right. And this for me, Mountains is one of my favorite Prince songs, and on the album obviously it finishes after about 5 minutes. This is the equivalent of one of your favorite songs being doubled in length. This is a 10-minute version of Mountains, and it's for me it's the best 12-inch version of any Prince song.
I love it. I love it. I maybe that's why I kept it, because again, as I purged some of my stuff, I look back and thinking, what was I thinking in 1995? Stuff I was going to get on CD stuff, and it might have been also visual, because I was immersed in photography, and I just love how this graphic cover of this. I mean, it's so simple, really, but it's just beautiful. And of course, Lisa. Wendy. Lisa.
But of course, as well,
aren't they the same person? Aren't they the same person, Wendy and Lisa? No, I know
interchangeable. Yeah.
No,
but you've got to think as well, Purple Rain, 1983, 84, and that whole look, and just how he changed, with the next album, Around the World in a Day, and then again into the whole black and white thing with Parade. He kept changing, so successfully. I mean, I think the quote is that Prince was to the 80s what Bowie was to the 70s and the Beatles to the 60s. He was the guy that was leading the way, that everybody was following. And I think part of the problem that when you get into the 90s, and we'll perhaps come on to that in a moment, he started adding elements of to his music, which was him trying to follow other artists, which he wasn't necessarily leading. As successful. Yeah, he wasn't leading anymore.
I mean, in the 80s,
throughout the 80s,
I think throughout the 80s, the parallel person on the other side was Madonna. I mean, Madonna was certainly changing her look, her sound. I mean, within the dance kind of, pop beat. I mean, all the time too. People would, was either embraced it, which they did a lot. She was so successful, and some people obviously she turned off people in a different way too. Because, but mostly she gained people. So,
yeah, definitely, yeah. So do I need to pull out a record? Do I?
Yep.
Right. Talking about early. Right. Early 90s. Now, it was at this point that I think it's probably at this point I went back and bought all of the 80s stuff. So although I bought my first album was 88, LoveSexy. I probably picked up Batman and whatnot. But when this came out, well, Diamonds and Pearls, then this came out, I went back and bought all the other albums. Now, this is, from 1992. It's the Symbol album, or the Love Symbol album. And this was, for me, I really love this album. I love the songs on here, but it does always feel like a bit of a missed opportunity. Now, he had a concept with this record. There was the actress Kirstie Alley recorded.
That's different album, right?
That's a bit later. Yeah,
sorry.
That's a bit later, yeah. That's right, yeah. The actress Kirstie Alley recorded some segues where she was basically playing a reporter who was trying to get an interview with Prince, and this was to be the theme throughout the album. When the album was actually released, only 2 of those segues remained, because at the 11th hour, Prince recorded another song which he wanted to fit onto the album. Obviously, a CD's only got so much plain space, so he bumped off all of these segues, just leaving 2, and he added the extra track, I Want to Melt With You. And although that's a great song, it sort of took away the concept of the album. I think it could have been something a little bit more interesting than what it is, but still some great songs. My favourite song on here is a track called Blue Light, which is almost a bit of a cod reggae type thing, but a really clever, cheeky lyric, very, very Prince. And I think that's the thing with, when I look at my favourite songs on Prince albums, you held up Around the World in a Day. I like the songs which, you feel that they could only be written by Prince. So on the album, Condition of the Heart, or on Sign of the Times, the Ballad of Dorothy Parker, on this Blue Light, it's those songs that are just so Prince.
And Raspberry Beret is not so Prince, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it's a great pop song. But yeah.
Yeah, great pop song.
Yeah. I want you to tell me more about this, because I have this and I got it when it came out, and I don't remember. There were real copies and faux copies, and it might be faux, and I got it right away. So if there was a real one, this is a real one, and that's this.
Yeah. So I think that's going to be a boot.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and I don't remember how I got it or why I got it, because I really wasn't buying boots, but I don't remember.
Yeah. So this album was meant to be the follow-up to Sign of the Times, and it's quite a dark album, So. And he just basically changed his mind. He's changed his outlook, and he went and recorded LoveSexy, which is a very positive album. It's got quite a religious feel to it, and it's quite spiritual in places. And he followed up Sign of the Times with LoveSexy, but the Black Album is an iconic album. It's something that everybody talks about. It did get an official release briefly in 1994 on CD.
I have the CD too somewhere in my pile here, so I do have the real CD. But I couldn't remember, because it's one of those false memory things. Did I buy this that they came out because I knew everybody at the label? Did I get it from someone there? Probably not. I just don't remember actually physically getting this. So
but it's a great record, and obviously he was performing a couple of the songs off that record on the LoveSexy tour as well. So some of the songs did hang around a little bit, but it's just interesting the fact that he chose not to go with what is quite a dark record. With something so uplifting, really, in LoveSexy.
Okay.
Good. Right.
Your serve.
My serve. See what I've got left. I've only pulled out a handful of bits and bobs. Right. Okay. I'll talk about this. So, talking about the 2000s. This is one of my favourite Prince albums. This is Musicology. This came out in 2004, I think it was. And
I have just the CD one,
CD,
obviously.
Yeah. So this is Prince back at the top of his game again for me. Great pop songs, and he was acting like a star again. So, I think he was in 2004, if not he was certainly one of the biggest grossing artists in the world. He toured again, playing all the hits, sold out everywhere. And interestingly, this album was a top 5 album all over the world. And the reason why it was in the States was because every time that somebody bought a concert ticket, they got a free copy of this album on CD. And at that point, it went towards his chart placing in the Billboard chart. The Billboard chart actually changed it after that. You had to have
McCartney did that later too, and they changed it after a while. Yeah.
Yeah, you had to have the option of buying the CD, whereas at this stage it was just part of the concert ticket price. and that's what basically sort of propelled it into the top 3 or top 2 of the chart there. But it's a brilliant record. It's a pop record. This is my favorite band that he ever had. He had a killer band with him from the early 2000s through to the mid 2000s. John Blackwell on drums, Renato Neto on keys, Rhonda Smith on bass. He had a great horn section. Greg Boyer, Eric Leeds, and Maceo Parker and Candy Dolfer. There's a brilliant clip on YouTube of the band playing the title track to this on the Jay Leno show. Now, I reckon for me, it's the most watched clip. Certainly my most watched clip on YouTube. I watch it so often. It's just Prince in his prime. He's absolutely wonderful. What a showman he is. What a musician. And he's just got the audience sitting out the palm of his hand. And the band are absolutely killer. If you haven't seen it, check it out.
That's the last time I saw Prince was at, and that's where I got the record. So I got it with the CD. I actually did see 2 in San Francisco. He would do these things and these last minute special concerts at clubs. And there was a club in South of Market area, San Francisco, called DNA Lounge, kind of a dancey club, post-punk for a while. And I saw one of those special shows at midnight or 1 a.m. that he would come in. And it's great because it's a club of maybe, 600 people in it, 500 people, whatever. And after he would play a couple nights or something at the Open Coliseum or something, and it was just great. I mean, you feel like you got a special ticket to something. So,
well, he did in 2007, was it? He did a residency in London at the O2. He did a 21 night residency.
I remember that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really big deal. And the album that came out prior to that was called 3121. So all of the concert tickets were £31.21, which was probably at the time about half the standard price of seeing a big artist. So
here's the visual thing of
there
that,
you go,
just to kind of give you a sense.
So it was nice, basically because of the concert ticket price, you could go and see him multiple times. I saw him 5 times on that little run. And it's just fantastic. He played all the hits. But of course, he was still doing the after show parties then as well. You could go and see an after show. Now, I went along to one of those after shows. And unfortunately, Prince didn't play. He sent Dr. John along instead. So Dr. John did a set at 3 a.m. with his band, which was great. But of course, you want to see Prince, don't you?
Yeah, want to see Prince. Yeah, that's what I've heard at some of those shows he did at Paisley Park, where people would come up thinking he was going to play, and sometimes he just wouldn't show up at all and play at all, or he'd come out by the time it's 6 a.m, 7 a.m, everyone's like screwed up, that type of thing. I'm going to show. It's funny. I don't know if we're going to ever get to them, but if not, we're going to get comments. So what about 1999? What about Purple Rain? I'm not actually showing those, but maybe you will. This to me was the biggest surprise of the reissues for me. Even though I know it somewhat, but when it came on vinyl, I really got into it, and that's this. Yeah, it's such a jazzy record, beautiful sounding record. The Rainbow Children. You want to talk about it?
Well, yeah. I mean, this is a fascinating album for me because it didn't actually get a release in the UK. We could only buy it on import. He came over to the UK and he played 3 shows in London at the Hammersmith Apollo, and I saw the first and the third shows, and they are my favourite Prince shows that I went to. Wow. Yeah, quite a small band with him, but it was just a good vibe. It's nice seeing him in a smaller venue, like a 2,000-seater venue, rather than the arenas that you normally got the chance to see him in previously. But that album, as you say, there's a lot of jazz in there. It's quite a religious album. It's basically he was inspired to make that on the back of becoming a Jehovah's Witness.
It's got a really nice. It's got a pop, soulful gospel sound, which I'm a big gospel fan. Not like in a traditional sense, but I quite like it. And I don't know. Yeah, our locals gave us this. Whatever. Yeah,
but it's but it's a brilliant album, and it's certainly one of his most interesting records because. It's clearly a record that he wasn't trying to make music to sell records. He wasn't intending for any of this stuff to be hit singles. He was just clearly making the music that he wanted to make, and for that reason, it's a brilliant record. He had a real that early 2000s period is a great period. It's something that's often overlooked, and I hope will be sort of reevaluated as time goes on. But albums like The Rainbow Children, Musicology, 3121. They're all, great records.
They're beautiful. I agree. And I like that people are discovering this stuff and they're putting it out, and they're finally not flooding the market at once, but they're putting some, and the packaging is nice. The mastering is nice. The sound of these last records are beautiful, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Your turn.
Yeah, I'm going to show a CD. So this is the last album that Prince put out on Warner Brothers. So this was, I think, 1997, 98, I think about 98. And it's called The Vault. And so Prince basically went off making his own stuff, on his own label with Emancipation in 1996. But he still owed Warner's an album. And this album was actually submitted to Warner's, and I think about 1995, 96, Warner sat on it, and they didn't release it until I think it was 98, 99 actually that this came out. And I think it's a 10-track record. And it's interesting. It's a bit of a hodgepodge, music from different parts of his career, stuff from The Vault. But it's definitely got a real jazz flavour to it. Half of the tracks have a strong jazz feel to them. Now, in the early 90s, Prince wrote a number of songs, I think 5 or 6 songs, for a film called I'll Do Anything, which was directed by James L. Brooks, who directed As Good as It Gets.
A lot of comedies.
Terms of Endearment. And he... And so he basically wrote this film, I'll Do Anything. And it's conceived to be an old-fashioned Hollywood musical. So the idea was that the characters, would break out into song, partway through the film as part of the story. Now, when they cast the film, they cast the actors for their acting ability, not for their singing ability, right? So Prince submitted 6 songs, which were all recorded by the cast. And the cast were Nick Nolte, who, I don't imagine has the best singing voice. And also the actress, I'm sorry, I don't know her name, but the lady that does the voice for Marge Simpson in The Simpsons.
Oh, she's actually sing. She does sing usually.
Yeah.
She's put out records. Oh, no. I'm thinking of Married with Children. Tall. Okay. Yeah, she sings.
Right. So if you can imagine Marge Simpson singing Prince songs and Nick Nolte singing Prince songs.
Yeah.
So basically what happened was they recorded all this music, and the film was eventually edited to cut out all of the music. So that the songs were never heard as part of the film. The film's never been shown as a musical. It's just a straight comedy. It's a total flop. But the songs from that, some of the songs from that were used on this album. And I'd recommend you check this out if you don't know. It's called The Vault, Old Friends for Sale.
I don't have that one.
It's a really nice album.
Yeah, I don't have that one. Woody Allen did a movie like that where he did one of his yearly Woody Allen movies, and it's like Drew Barrymore and all these people. And is that
Everyone Says I Love You?
Yes.
Everyone Says I Love You? Yeah, it's a great film.
The actors didn't know it was a musical till they came on set, and that's when they started, or just before they started, and they weren't singers. It's interesting. Yeah. I want to show an album it made my top list. I think it was 2 years ago, give or take. And I remember when I was reading articles and a lot of people I heard were disappointed. And I think it's one of the most beautiful releases. And it's this. Yeah. It's piano and microphone, 1983 recordings. It's what it is. It's just him and what it sounds exactly what it says. It's him playing these beautiful songs with the piano, very intimate, beautifully recorded. The side one is a medley of things like 17 Days, Purple Haze. And he just goes through the whole series of songs on a whole different take on it, on very minimal stylistic thing. Side 2 is Cold Coffee and Cocaine and Why the Butterflies. And it's a gorgeous record. It's one of those, late Saturday night, early Sunday morning records. That's how I play it usually. But to me, it's beautiful, and it's not the upbeat dance thing that everyone expected. And ironically, I think, was this one of the first of the Sony projects? So I think a lot of people were surprised that this is the first thing you're putting out, really?
Yeah.
Which I thought was artistically pretty amazing. I love this record.
It's interesting because that session there, it's basically a private session in playing these songs on piano, and particularly the opening song there, 17 Days. It's a brilliant version. It's a gorgeous version. but that particular performance had been bootlegged quite heavily. So it wasn't necessarily something new to a lot of Prince fans. Many people will have heard that before.
It's funny you say that, because I did this thing again. I'm sorry I have to go back to the Beatles, but there's this attitude when I read a reissue, whether it's All Things Must Pass or something else. I go on these forums and I read the comments, and I'm not a Prince person that follows the bootlegs or has the outtakes and things. I've just never gone there. But then I read these people saying, they make these comments, oh, we've all heard that stuff before. We heard this before. And my take on that is, when a company is putting a reissue or something for the first time, they can't think, well, those 60 people or those 6,000 people have the bootleg, therefore we're not going to put it out. They need to say, we're the official, in their mind, and this is what they do. And I'd never heard any of this stuff, and I thought it was brilliant. I just love it.
But it's interesting, the fact that the estate are choosing to mix up the type of releases that are coming out. So we've had the big archival releases, we've had something a little bit more niche like that record, and now we've got a fully formed brand new album that's come out with Welcome to America, which we'll come on to in a minute, no doubt. But I've just got one other record that I want to show before we perhaps get onto that, or a couple of others. And that's this is The Most Beautiful Girl in the World. So this, again, just an interesting period for Prince, because this is his only number one single over here in the UK. He never had another number one, and this was really around the start of him falling out with Warner Brothers. He basically wanted to start releasing some stuff on his own label while still signed to Warner Brothers, and Warner Brothers tried to appease him just by letting him release one single. They basically, you can put one single out on your own label, not through Warner Brothers. And I just find it fantastic, the fact that the one single that he put out, the one song, was an absolutely huge hit all over the world. And it just felt like, when he needs to write a perfect pop song, there you go, there it is.
Redemption. It's Redemption. That's a great song.
It's brilliant. Yeah. Gorgeous record.
I think we should talk about the new one, but I'm just going to show these. So the tweakers, okay, we got the hit albums. And I realized, I don't know why, I never did this, but I have my Tower Records receipt. I bought this in 1984, and I bought it, I don't know why I wrote this. I bought it Prince and a Cars record at the same time.
Right.
It says Prince and the Cars, Tower Records.
So what Cars album did you buy at the same time?
I don't remember. Well, think of whatever Cars album came out in 90. I assume it was a new record because I was buying.
Right.
I don't remember. Okay, are we talking this now?
Yeah. I mean, I know that your copy only arrived yesterday, didn't it?
It Thursday I got it, so I've listened to it 3 times.
Yeah,
it's beautiful. It sounds beautiful. It sounds beautiful.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell our lovely folks out there what this is exactly?
Yeah. So this was a little bit surprise for me, actually, because this is a fully formed Prince album that was recorded in 2010, late 2010, and wasn't released. Now, I don't know the reasons why it wasn't released. He just chose to shelve it. There's a lot of talk at the moment, people saying, well, he clearly knew that then wasn't the right time, and now we appreciate it much more. It seems to fit in what's going on in the world socially and politically, and it does. Whether he chose to shelve it for those reasons, I don't know. But musically, it starts off with the title track, "Welcome to America," and that's P-Funk. It's just got that lovely P-Funk vibe going on. I say, a very sort of political lyric to it. And yeah, fantastic. That was the first track that got a lot of airplay over here over the last few months on the lead up to this album coming out. And everybody straight away has jumped on it because, it's just Prince at his best. He's, doing what he does. It's brilliant.
You're talking about radio in the UK is playing it?
Yeah. And
it's funny. I'm just so out of the loop. I don't listen to music radio anymore, almost at all, and but I know it came out in 2010 and I just fell in love with it. And again, just playing it 3 times. I mean, just people like to see the cutie stuff sometimes, like, the lovely custom label. But I just was amazed how clean it's just a really well recorded. But I say I'm not surprised. I've seen, been to a studio. I've seen, what he does, and he takes care of his records. But it's not a how can I say this? It's not an overproduced record, even though it sounds very sparse, if that makes any sense, considering it's kind of a funky record, you know?
Yeah, it's certainly got a lightness to it, and the songs are good. The third track, yeah, the first third track, sorry, on this album is called Born to Die, and it's just a fantastic Curtis Mayfield homage. It's the vocal, the falsetto vocal, the guitar playing on it. It's, if any Curtis Mayfield fans out there and they haven't heard it yet, I say over here it's getting quite a lot of airplay actually, Born to Die. So it's track 3 on this record. Definitely one of the best tracks on the album and one to check out. But yeah, a fantastic
Have you heard
record.
any of that before? Is any of that stuff leaked from that?
No, I hadn't heard any of it prior to the official stuff being put out over the last few months. Yeah.
Okay.
As I was saying before, yeah. No, so that album came out, was recorded in 2010. This album, 2010, was actually released. And for me, it's probably one of his weakest albums. And again, it's one of these things that was given away with the newspaper over here.
Oh, right.
And it's just crap packaging. The album's okay. It's certainly not his best stuff. And I just find it fascinating that this did come out in 2010, and it is a pretty average Prince album. And this was sitting on the shelf for the last 11 years, a fully recorded album. And he chose to leave it. Yeah, I mean, as I said, this was given away free with a newspaper. And this comes back to what I was saying before about him leaving Warner Bros. And having to look at ways to release his music, to get his music out there. Now, Prince never stopped being Prince. He always lived like Prince. He always, that perception. He always acted like a major artist, a big artist, where sometimes he wasn't necessarily selling the numbers of records that he had been throughout the 80s. So, but money clearly was always a problem with Prince after he left Warner Brothers. There were periods where clearly, cash was an issue. He needed more cash to keep things going with, he's running Paisley Park, recording studio, gig venue. He's got a band out on the road, whether it be costume design, artistic design for record sleeves, etc. He always had a big overhead. And the reason why these records came out with newspapers over here was because it was a quick way to get cash. So, if you'd released it, okay, you might have sold the same amount of units, made the same amount of money, but the money would have trickled in as royalties. This way, you would get a quick £500,000 payment from a newspaper, giving them the right to release it with their Sunday edition for one day. So again, it's this way of him looking to get his music out there using other methods. He used the internet, he used daily newspapers, etc. Fascinating. But again, a very average album compared to a very good album, which he chose not to release.
Yeah, I'm really happy so far. I'm going to actually, after we get, and I'm packing all these records away after these, my floors are always filled with records after I do these videos, pulling out.
Yeah.
I don't have a librarian, so I have to do it myself. But I just love this, and this will be a good afternoon record just to kind of blast. I'm here home alone this afternoon, and I just can't wait for this. So I love doing this, and I love doing this with someone that I can learn something, because I do a lot of these videos, and I always learn something watching your videos and other people's. But this is music I love. I'm immersed in some of it, and even though the music I have, I feel that I'm not really. I don't know the records as deep as you do on these. And is there a parting word about one of the greatest artistic achievements ever? And that's this movie. This movie. Yeah. One of the great, this is like next to Citizen Kane. This might be the Graffiti Bridge.
No, I know that you're mocking me here, but I love that film, Mazzy.
You love the film?
As you say, the Magical Mystery Tour. I mean, I've seen the Magical Mystery Tour several times. It ain't good, but Graffiti Bridge is the equivalent for Prince.
I bought this thinking it was a remix or a remake of a Led Zeppelin album, so I just I was misinformed.
Yeah, I mean that was the start of things changing for Prince, really.
When he was, when I did that tour at Paisley Park, some of it was actually filmed there. I don't know, I can't remember if it was this movie or Cherry Moon, but some of the cafe scenes, they showed us pictures where they'd set up the cafe. It must have been Cherry Moon, I guess, the interiors. They actually used it as a film studio and shot some stuff there. So my guess is he was able to get the financier to pay location fees to his own studio. I mean,
Right.
you might as well, right? And all the things that go along with that, you know. So.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, there you go. So when we stop doing this, you can listen to Graffiti Bridge, Mazzy. Yeah.
I don't. Do you have this on vinyl?
Yeah.
Of course you do. Of course you do.
Of course,
When did,
yeah. 1990. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So basically that is, you know, in theory, well, it is. It's the follow-up film to Purple Rain. So that's the
sequel,
the idea.
right? It's the same
sequel,
character, right? Yeah.
So Purple Rain was meant to be similar to that in the way that it's structured. The album came out as a 9-track album, Purple Rain, of course, with just the Prince songs. But it was originally conceived that it was going to be a double album containing the songs from the film With the Time and Apollonia 6. So it'd be a much longer record. In the end, he trimmed it down to just being Purple Rain. When he put out Graffiti Bridge, it includes all of the songs from the film with the other artists as well, and it doesn't really work.
That would be a good idea to do that. Purple Rain, as because it's in a way like Saturday Night Fever. It's, you know, it's got the Bee Gees and it's got the other thing, all the other artists mixed in or something, you know. But anyway,
there you go.
All right, John. Thank you, Prince. You got to buy this Prince music. This Prince guy is cool. Anyway, thank you for watching, and we'll see you later. Mazzy loves you.
Cheers.
Bye.